Where did the Geran-2 drones even come from? Since the very beginning of the war in Ukraine, we've seen a flood of so-called wunderwaffe, weapons that were supposed to completely change the course of the conflict and tip the balance one way or another. And let's be honest, most of that hype came from the Ukrainian side. Remember all the talk about Turkish Bayraktars, American Javelins, HIMARS, Abrams, Leopards, F-16s, Storm Shadows, ATACMS, and so on? Every time one of these systems was introduced, the message was the same. This is it. Now the tide will turn. But if there's one weapon that truly has shaped the course of the conflict, it didn't show up on Ukraine's side. In fact, Russia's own wunderwaffe made a low-key appearance back in September 2022. No flashy media rollout. It earned its reputation through sheer effectiveness on the battlefield and the psychological punch it delivered to Ukrainian troops. I'm talking, of course, about the Geran family of drones. So, where did these drones come from? Who's building them? And how did they become one of the most decisive weapons in this war? We're breaking it all down in this video. Enjoy the watch. The origin story of the Geran. To trace the roots of the Geran, you have to look toward the Middle East, specifically Iran. That's because the Geran-2 is a near-carbon copy of the Iranian Shahed-136. The resemblance isn't just superficial, it's exact, which means it's either the same drone or a licensed version. And yeah, it is. The Shahed-136 was first shown publicly in 2014 during a visit by Ayatollah Khamenei to the IRGC headquarters in Tehran. After that, it more or less disappeared from public view until May and September of 2019, when fragments of an unknown drone turned up after Houthi strikes on Aramco facilities, a Saudi oil company. At the time, those drones were referred to as Waid. Recognize that buzz? And the shape of the wreckage looks awfully familiar, doesn't it? After that, Shaheds dropped off the radar again until January 2021, when they reappeared in IRGC's Great Prophet 15 exercises, used to simulate SEAD missions against enemy air defenses. Fast forward to fall 2022, and we all know what happened next. We also know that one of the Russian Ministry of Defense's biggest tech blunders was its total failure to take drones seriously. UAVs simply weren't on the radar until the war broke out, and then they had to scramble to fix the gap at the highest level. By April 2022, Iran and Russia signed a deal for shipments of 122mm and 152mm artillery shells, mortars, and assault rifles. And in May, the first batches of Iranian strike drones started arriving, with deliveries really kicking into high gear in June and July. That first wave included the Shahed-131 and 136 Yasir and Mohajer 6. The Yasir is an unlicensed clone of the American Boeing Scan Eagle, a lightweight reconnaissance drone. The Mohajer 6 is a heavier hunter-killer drone, capable of hitting targets with guided missiles, a solid battlefield tool in its own right, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. When it comes to both deployment and production, nothing in that lineup comes close to the Shahed-136. That's the drone that's been wreaking havoc on Ukrainian air defenses and logistics hubs, and arguably one of the most influential weapons in the war so far. In Russia, it was given a more familiar-sounding name, Geran-2. The 2 is there because the smaller Shahed-131 was renamed Geran-1, and since September 13, 2022, Russian forces have been using these drones on both tactical and strategic levels. So now we know where it came from, but who's building these things for the Russian army? For nearly 3 years now, the project has been officially shrouded in secrecy. No designers, no factories, no technical specs, no confirmed performance data. Eventually, that info will go public, but we're not going to wait around. Western intel services in Ukraine already have all the details, and a lot of it is hiding in plain sight. Then came a major leak, courtesy of a group of American hackers. Thanks to that breach, it became clear that Russia and Iran had agreed on direct drone deliveries. Some of the hacked files even included estimated prices for the drones and tentative delivery schedules. I'll go over the different Shahed-Geran variants a bit later, but let's just say, at first glance, it looks like the Iranians made out pretty well on the deal. That is, until you realize one key detail. Turns out, Russia didn't just buy a few drones. It bought a production license and fully localized manufacturing on its own territory. That includes facilities in Ijevsk and at the Alabuga Special Economic Zone in Tatarstan. According to U.S. intel, construction of the Alabuga site began as early as spring 2023. Iran didn't just hand over documents. They sent experts, supplied equipment, trained personnel, and helped set up the entire production process from the ground up. And that changes everything. They even thought about cover stories. According to the leaked paperwork, the production line was officially registered as motorboats. Given that the Shahed's engine sounds almost exactly like a boat motor, there's a certain irony there. Thing is, as these motorboats go through assembly, they gradually turn into something that looks suspiciously close to an Iranian Shahed. Draw your own conclusions. And according to those same leaked files, the country supplying the drones and technical documentation for local production is either referred to as a friendly nation or even Ireland. Real covert ops professionals, clearly. Indeed, Western intelligence sources have repeatedly reported that production halls at the Alabuga plant started popping up like mushrooms after rain. The site was quickly surrounded by a secured perimeter, and manned checkpoints were set up across the entire facility. Back in 2023, estimates put the monthly output of localized Geran-2 drones at around 200 units per month, but by 2024, that figure had more than tripled. According to a report by the Moscow Times from December 2024, the Alabuga factory produced 5,760 Geran-2 drones in just the first 9 months of the year. That assessment was echoed by the Wall Street Journal, which also noted that the plant had brought in additional workers, including some from East Africa, and is now capable of producing up to 6,000 drones annually. In fact, according to the article, Russia reached its 2025 drone production targets an entire year ahead of schedule. The original plan was to hit the 6,000 mark by September 2025, not 2024. According to Defense Express, as of today, Russia may have ramped up production of Shahed 136 drones to as many as 2,000 units per month, assuming, of course, that they're not fudging the serial numbers. For example, on December 21, 2024, Ukrainian forces shot down a drone near Kharkiv bearing the serial Y11934. If those numbers are sequential and haven't been artificially padded, that suggests over 10,000 Shaheds were produced in 2024 alone, especially considering that back in February, drones with serials in the Y26000s were already being documented. The Y series turned out to be the most massive by far, with a total run estimated at around 14,000 units. Before that came the M and K series. The M drones are believed to be the original Iranian imports relabeled as Geran-2s inside Russia. Starting in 2023, we saw the K marking appear, along with a rarer KB, representing the first batches assembled domestically. Most recently, a new series of the Geran-2 has entered service, marked with the Cyrillic letter Twardy Znak, called the hard sign. As of now, over 213 drones from this batch have reportedly been built. That makes it the fourth known production series after MK and Y, and the most recent one to date. But aside from the well-known motorboats, aka the Geran-2, the Alabuga plant is also producing other UAV types. First, there's the Albatross, a reconnaissance drone used for tracking enemy positions and movement. It also performs post-strike damage assessment for its fellow drones, keeping an eye on how well their hits landed. Then there's the Gerbera, a decoy drone that looks a lot like the Geran, but with a much simpler build and a small warhead, typically under 10 kilograms. In the early days, these decoys didn't even carry explosives, but later on, they started fitting them with small charges, either for self-destruction or to hit soft, low-priority targets. Because hey, if you've already built a drone out of sticks and scrap, may as well let it go out with a bang. But that's a matter of battlefield tactics, and we'll get to that later. One thing is clear. Localizing Geran production inside Russia has been a game-changer, and arguably, one of the most important developments behind the Russian military's continued success, because it solved two critical challenges for any war effort: scaling up production and driving down unit cost. We've already covered the production numbers, so let's talk price. According to expert estimates, a single Geran-2 costs anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 US, depending on the configuration. Some sources even claim it goes for just $6 to $8 grand a unit. For comparison, a Bayraktar TB2 will set you back nearly $2 million bucks, and a single HIMARS rocket runs around $100,000 a shot. And here's the kicker. The only expensive part of the Geran is the engine. Originally, it was a German-made model priced at 12 to 17,000 US dollars. And yes, Iran got them through parallel imports. But that couldn't last long, so they quickly developed a clone, one that, according to many experts, probably costs no more than $5,000. Bottom line, you get a kamikaze drone for under $8,000 that hits as hard as 3 or 4 152mm artillery shells. But perhaps even more important is that local production means full control over the design. That opens the door to modifications and upgrades tailored to your own battlefield needs. Just take a look at this footage from the Geran-2 production lines. The scale and setup speak for themselves. One interesting detail: some drones are finished in the standard light gray, others in matte black, and a third group is coated with radar-absorbing material to reduce visibility to enemy air defenses. From here, it only makes sense to dive into how Russia's locally built Gerans have evolved, and what now sets them apart from their Iranian predecessors. We'll also break down how the drone actually works, what its structure looks like, and of course, how it can be countered on the battlefield. If you're curious to know the answers, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss anything. See you very soon in the next video.